Welcome to another Inside Track edition of the Digital DJ Tips podcast, where we look at 3 burning issues in the world of DJing this month. We're talking about AlphaTheta and 5 things that our students think they could be doing better. We're also going to talk about 4 channels on DJ gear. Do we need them? If so, why? And what should we look for when we're buying DJ gear with 4 channels on it? And finally, we'll talk about live streaming your DJ sets, what it is, why you do it, and we give you 3 super simple ways of doing so. As ever, this was recorded in front of an audience of Digital DJ Tips students who contributed throughout. If you enjoy what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating on your podcast platform. It does really help. And if you'd like to hear one of your questions answered on one of these shows, then become a Digital DJ Tips student. Head to digitaldjtips.com and look at our courses where we have everything from beginner right up to expert DJ training. Should we get on with today's show? I think we should. So our first topic today is a bit of a contentious one. It always is when we raise this. It's 5 issues that AlphaTheta has to deal with. So AlphaTheta is the new name for Pioneer DJ. Pioneer DJ appears now to be definitely fading into the background, and AlphaTheta is coming into the foreground as a complete brand and name change for the most dominant brand in DJing. And when you're the most dominant brand in anything, when you're the one everyone sees, you're the one, for better or worse, everyone talks about. And people have a whole range of views about the companies they talk about all the time. And it's no different in the DJ world. AlphaTheta does inspire an awful lot of feedback and of sometimes criticisms. So, you know, they're doing something right because they are the biggest brand in DJing by a long way. But there's certain things that we know as a DJ school that our students raise again and again. And so I'm going to talk through the 5 things that we hear, kind of roughly in the order that we hear them, I guess, about this company. And we'll just give you our views on them. And because this is a live show being recorded in front of a live audience of Digital DJ Tips course owners and students, we will feed in some feedback from our audience as we go along if we spot something that we think is worth sharing. So the first of our 5 issues that we think AlphaTheta, formerly Pioneer DJ, has to deal with is just that. They're not called Pioneer DJ anymore by the look of it. They're now called AlphaTheta. Greek alphabet words. It's not as strong, is it? It's not as strong a brand. Pioneer DJ just says DJing. I mean, it literally says it there in the name. But Pioneer, even before that, even before they were called Pioneer DJ, were synonymous with DJing, along with a few other things, it has to be said. But it's not as strong a brand. It doesn't stand out as anything, really. It just seems like something that's been thought up in a boardroom. It's going to take some getting used to, isn't it? I think what we have to realize here is that this is a big company. Right, this is a big company. It's owned by the kind of corporate structure that needs to make money, and that's got, you know, it's got to return a profit to the owners and all this kind of thing. So there's going to be stuff going on behind the scenes that means that this is possibly something that was kind of forced on them, or there's bigger reasons for this name change. So I don't think there's really any point debating whether or not they should have changed it. I think we can say, was it a good name to change to? Possibly not. I don't think that many people think it's a wonderful name for a DJ and software hardware company. However, it is what it is, and they're going to have to put all their resources into making everyone accept the new name. A lot of people are saying, well, that's going to be the end of them then. You know, you can't change your name like that and carry on. You know, that goes against the fact that this is a company that is very established and that works extremely hard on a lot of things in this world. They've got their fingers in a lot of pies, they've got a lot of partnerships, etc., etc. I don't think just changing your name is going to destroy you. It's certainly not going to do you any favours. So our verdict on the identity one, honestly, I just think we're all going to get used to it. I think in 5 years' time, we won't even remember so much. the old name change. For those of you in the UK who remember the Marathon bar, which was called Snickers, it was always called Snickers elsewhere in the world, the old chocolate and nut bar. We got used to that in the end. I know it's not really a very comparable example, but you know what I mean. So identity, yes, they've got to deal with it, but I think they will. That's my view on that. The second one, and this is probably more important, that gets raised a lot by our students and people in our community, is the price of their gear. Because they have a reputation at AlphaTheta, formerly Pioneer DJ, of not being particularly cheap. Well, let's face it, not being cheap. So reputation is expensive. Reputation, if you're going to buy the top brand in anything, is going to cost you more. It's just how it is. People complain, but they still pay it, right? But let's look at the facts. I think, and this is from looking at the market from the top to the bottom, I think their pro gear is expensive. For sure, it's expensive. To buy a setup like we have at the Digital DJ Tips Studios of 2 CDJ 3000s, we don't even have 4, we just have 2, and an A9 mixer in the middle, it's going to cost you an awful lot of money. You could buy a car for that. And so yes, the pro gear is expensive, but pro users will pay. They just will. Money is not the issue. It's an investment in the next 5 years of equipment in their venues or whatever. I don't really think the pro companies are the ones moaning about this. It's the amateurs who want to buy this stuff and can't afford it who are moaning. When you start to move down into the gear that's one below the very, very pro Pioneer or now AlphaTheta gear, it starts to get a bit more complicated because the upper end of the consumer market is pretty expensive from this brand. But then again, you are buying the dominant brand and it's your choice. Other options are available. The lower end is not really very expensive. It's good value in the lower end. They make sure that the equipment that you can buy at the bottom end or the entry level, as they prefer to call it, is comparable to anyone else's. And so you've got this situation where the brand has got different stuff at different price points and the value tends to get higher the lower down you go. But I think another thing that feeds into this argument about whether their equipment is well priced or not is the idea that you're not really getting much value for money here. And this is where it gets more complicated because people expect that you get a lot of innovation when you spend a bit more. And I think it's a conscious decision by this company not to go down that route. I think they have decided internally, rightly or wrongly, that DJs are with a small c, a pretty conservative lot. Really, DJs just want it to work and they want it to do what it should do. And actually, while people like us, while the keyboard warriors who love the new technology, and while the cutting edge, the early adopters and so on, do like to see something shiny and something new every 18 months, I think they've decided that actually the most important thing is to get stuff out there that does the basics very well, and we'll leave others to do the innovating. So when you've got, and then if anything kind of catches on, we'll do it too. So when you've got this situation where you've got an expensive brand who are not leading the innovation, which I think again is a conscious decision, I think that is what subconsciously people react against and say, well, I'm getting less, but I'm paying more. Again, my argument is that that's deliberate. So yeah, as far as pricing goes, it's a toss-up between whether you're buying expensive or cheap, as in whether you're buying the top end or the low end of the market, and also whether you equate the latest features with the money you're spending. And if you do, other brands have certainly got more value for you there. But if you don't, this brand becomes a little bit more appealing. The truth is they charge what they can. And any company charges what it can. Do you honestly think that brands 2, 3 and 4 in the market wouldn't charge what AlphaTheta are charging if they could? So this is market forces at work. But that does bring us nicely onto the third thing we hear people criticizing this particular company for, and that is their market dominance. And their market dominance is real. They definitely do dominate the market. We do a survey every year here at Digital DJ Tips where many, many thousands of DJs take part. And in that survey, we ask people what gear they're using and what gear they're planning on switching to if they are in the next 12 months. And AlphaTheta, Pioneer DJ, is right at the top of the pile by a long, long way in all areas. Their market dominance is real. And, competition is, in my view, necessary. You really don't want monopolies because monopolies stifle competition and they mean those prices do drift up. People charge what they can. Competition is good. So this year we've seen Serato, which is the biggest software company outside of Rekordbox, which is Pioneer's own software platform, not get bought by Pioneer DJ stroke AlphaTheta because of the monopolies commissions in the various countries that were concerned, stepping in and saying, no, you can't buy this company. AlphaTheta tried to buy Serato, but they were stopped. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's good that there are companies innovating outside of this one. And I certainly think that since other companies have got really serious about making DJ gear that challenges AlphaTheta have upped their game. And so Denon DJ's gear over the last 5 or so years has been really very, very good. And I think that we saw a stagnation in the kind of gear that AlphaTheta, or Pioneer DJ as they were then known, made for many years until they had a credible competitor. So competition is good. It's not their fault if they dominate the market, right? Others would love to. Again, do you really think that the other brands wouldn't like to have that kind of market share if they could? But competition is definitely good, and so market dominance is by definition bad, and therefore we are all for other people coming in and trying to compete. We all win when there's healthy competition in the market. Let's move on to the fourth of our things that we hear a lot here, and I'm sure if you are a user of this company, their software and their hardware, you will know this, and I've just mentioned it. It's software. Software is something that people complain about a lot when it comes to AlphaTheta's products for lots of reasons. Their DJ software is subscription only, and that really gets a lot of people's backs up. You can't go and buy the DJ software. They have recently shuttered support for some older hardware that really isn't that old with the latest version of their DJ software, getting a lot of people's backs up. Their DJ software is, in my view, overcomplicated and has got reliability issues. And a lot of the things that could be easy are not, especially subscriptions, figuring out what you need to buy, getting it to work. It's a bit of a fudge. It's a little bit under what we would expect from such a big company. I think having worked with all of the companies in this field and having used all of their software, having taught all of their software, having taken a lot of students through training that we've made on most of these platforms, I think most DJ software, frankly, is a little bit below standard compared to other markets, such as photography, production software, video editing, and so on. It really is. And I think that's because the DJ software world is so much smaller than all those other worlds I've just mentioned. It's kind of inevitable. I honestly think the only company that gets it close to right is Algorithm with their DJ Pro software. They seem to get most things right. I think other people in this field, such as Virtual DJ, get a lot right, and other people they make it their software kind of easier to use than Rekordbox, such as Serato, but they've got their own problems. Rekordbox, unfortunately, I don't think is the best in any area. Let's address a couple of those points though. Yes, it's subscription only, but you plug your Rekordbox controller or equipment into a computer with Rekordbox on it, and you can use pretty much all of the features of the software without paying that subscription. It's not so stripped back that it's pretty useless, like other brands like Serato have a stripped back version. All they want you to do is buy their software, which is of course going to be the case because they don't make hardware. That's how they make their money. So even though it's subscription only, you do get most of the functionality when you just plug your gear in. So there's a tick there in their box that you don't really have to subscribe to it if you don't want to. I think they need to be a bit more careful with the way they treat their users. And I think a lot of this is honestly, it's not deliberate. I don't think they deliberately wanted to get people's backs up by stopping the support for older hardware. I just think maybe they didn't know how many people were using it or whatever. I don't know. I feel there's a little bit more kind of accidentally upsetting people going on there. But I do feel that their software is overcomplicated, especially in areas around billing, in areas around communication of differences, in areas around proper beta testing before they roll it out. And I do think they could do better there. You know, I remember not so long ago Rekordbox, the platform that you need to prepare your music for pro DJ gear and also to plug in your DJ controller to DJ from, wasn't even made by them. It was made by the company that made an existing platform, but they just rebadged and stuck it in the box with their gear. So it's only in the last few years they've actually taken, you know, proper ownership of their own software. So they are playing catch up there, but I think it is one area where they really ought to try and put more resource in, and also just try and have user experience experts advising them more. They could definitely do better in the software area, and I do agree with a lot of the people who tear their hair out when they come to us asking why they can't get this to work or that to work or whatever. So the final thing, and this is one that's only come up recently, but 2 or 3 people have said this, and when 2 or 3 people say it, you can imagine that there's, you know, a few extra people thinking it. It's the environmental stuff. It's the, you know, do we really need a new plastic box every 18 months that does almost what the last plastic box did? And do we really need all the effort that goes into packaging up and sending out and shipping all this gear when really there's not an awful lot changing? And I want to just talk about this a little bit broader now, because of course this is bigger than just DJ gear. It's all electronic equipment manufacturers and to an extent all consumer goods manufacturers. But I do believe that the DJ gear made by AlphaTheta, formerly Pioneer DJ, tends to be quite reliable. We've used, even from the basic stuff upwards, we've used it for many, many years here. We tend to get less stuff breaking. And we tend to hear from our students that they can get it repaired more easily when it does break than other brands. So actually, I think they're one of the better brands in that area. Also, just as an anecdotal story, we're actually reviewing some stuff which you will hear about in good time from this brand. And the more recent gear that's arrived, when we've unpacked it, we've realised, again, this isn't just DJ brands. I've noticed it when we take our over large, I have to say, family Amazon deliveries regularly. There's very little plastic nowadays compared to before. You know, that kind of polystyrene wrapping that used to come and the plastic blow up bits. It's all cardboard, which I think is really good. Even the carry handles that used to be plastic on the boxes are now becoming made of cardboard. So, you know, they are definitely doing stuff in that direction, and they are definitely better than other DJ companies, because I unpack stuff from all of them. So even companies that you think, you know, would do better, such as III, the headphone manufacturer, where everything's modular, it all comes packed in plastic. And AlphaTheta is not doing that. So the environmental thing, I think we could all do better, but they're definitely not the worst. So look, I'm sure that you've got an awful lot of things to say about this. And if you do want to comment on this, of course, if you're a digital DJ tips student, you can head into the student community and comment there. Because we're recording this in front of a live audience, I've got a few comments that I'd just like to throw in as well. Lou saying, I agree with you, Phil, Rekordbox is not reliable. It does also lack some basic features. Oh no, this is Mixmaster G saying the algorithm software, as you mentioned, Phil, is good, but it does still lack some very basic features. I agree with you there as well. As I said, no DJ software, I think, is up to the standards of the best software in other creative markets that are adjacent, like video and photography and music production and so on. And so I feel that Serato and AlphaTheta should definitely be separate companies. Competition is healthy and beneficial to the industry, says Craig, a couple of other people there. And Chuck is throwing in the name of the software that was originally the inspiration for and the same code base as Rekordbox, and it was called Cross DJ. Thank you for the reminder there, Chuck. And people are really whinging about DJ software in general here. I told you, no DJ software is brilliant. Ted says Serato really needs to up their game. The beat gridding is terrible compared to other software, and the lack of good compatibility with BeatSource, which is a streaming service, is also frustrating. You can't put music you own with their music in the same crate. No, you can't. So, right, we're going to move on now because we've got 3 topics, as always, in this inside track. Thank you to our live audience for your, as always, impassioned and fun comments there and for pushing the debate a bit further. But now we're going to move into a gear area. We've talked about the kind of industry a little bit. We're going to move into talking about DJ gear. However, I do want to just add before we move on, if you are a Pioneer DJ or AlphaTheta equipment user and you're using the software and you are scratching your head and struggling with it, as a DJ school, we teach a lot of students how to get past these bumps. We have a course called Record Box Made Easy, which goes from the beginning to the end, and it teaches you absolutely everything about that software. So do go and look at that. Hello to Phoebe, who is one of our youngest audience members tuning in today. So you get a special shout out that other people don't. Right, we're going to move on then. This is from a few students asking a question that has been asked over the years many times, and it's popped up into our community recently, so I thought we'd cover it again. I don't think it's been covered for a good few years, and that is, do I really need to buy DJ gear that's got 4 channels on it? So 4 channels is where the mixer, the bit in the middle, has got 4 up faders, right? You've got your little crossfader at the bottom, and then you've got 4 of those up faders, right? They're the 4 channels, which means you can, in theory, mix 4 things together, because a lot of DJ gear has only got 2, which means in theory that you can only mix 2 things together. Do I really need those 4 channels? Because let's face it, any gear that's got 4 channels instead of 2 is going to take more space. By definition, it's going to be more complicated, and it's also going to take up more of your cash to buy it, because the bigger the gear, the more features, the more it's going to cost to buy. So to cover this, I want to just cover off a couple of things that kind of confuse the issue. And firstly, you need to understand that just because a piece of gear's got 4 channels, 4 of those up faders, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's got 4 inputs, or even that it's only got 4. Because some DJ gear that's designed to control software, yes, it's got 4 of those up faders, but they can only control 4 things from the software. You can't start plugging things in around the back, like your record decks and stuff, and use them in there as well. So when you're looking at gear that appears to have this plethora of inputs, do have a little peek around the back and see how much you can actually plug in. It might only work with software. The second thing is, if you look around the back of some professional gear, even though it's got 4 of these channels, you can plug a lot more than 4 things in. So you might be able to plug, 4 CD players or 4 CDJs and 4 turntables and a load of other stuff in there as well. So it might control more than 4 things, and then there'll be switches so you can switch between them at the top. It might be that you can control a whole suite of DJ software along with what I just said. You might have 12 inputs across your 4 channels. So do be careful when you're looking at gear as to what you're buying. Don't just assume that it's either more or fewer than the 4 that you've got. Check what they can control. I think the key thing here to share that will demystify it if you're thinking, why the hell would I need 4? It's hard enough to DJ with 2, is that you should really think of it as 2 plus 2, not 4. What do I mean by that? Well, the main 2 channels, which is normally, by the way, the 2 that are in the middle, they're normally the main 2 channels that control kind of the main 2 inputs. They're the ones you're going to be DJing from most of the time in most circumstances. You're going to be going from one to the other, to one to the other, left to right, deck 1 to deck 2, back to deck 1, back to deck 2. That's where you do your main mixing. The other 2 channels, the outer 2 channels, the decks 3 and 4, well, they're tending to be used by DJs in most styles and most genres for extra bits. So instead of mixing, 4 things at once, and some techno DJs and some very technical DJs do this, you tend to have an a cappella maybe, especially an a cappella that you use a lot. And it might sit on deck 3 for a long time as you tease it in and use it over and over again throughout a set. Maybe on deck 4, you've got a favorite drum loop that you like to bring in that just gives your sets the same flavor whenever you play them. Also, these can get used as emergency decks. So you can have tracks on them that if something goes wrong in your mixing, you can quickly press a button and fade up a track on one of the other decks that's just sat there waiting. So you can think of them kind of like a backup in that sense. With modern DJ gear, because we have stems, and stems are where you can instantly make a cappellas or instantly make a remix by putting a part of the track on one deck and a part of the track on the other. Again, sometimes DJs are tending to use them for that kind of thing. But also, and I've already mentioned it, they get used in bigger DJ setups to plug in different things. So if you've got a setup where you've got turntables and CDJs, and you've also got a laptop feeding in channels from there as well, then whatever you normally DJ on, so let's say it's your DJ software, well, that's going to be on the main channels. And you might have your turntables or your CDJs, or maybe both of them if your mixer is complex enough, plugged into the extra channels, right? So that when you do want to go and switch to use something like that, you'll be switching to there. And this could be extra gear as well. It could be like drum machines or samplers, or even if you've got a hybrid set where you play with other people and you play a mixture of live and pre-recorded music, well, they're going to use the extra channels as well. So pro DJ mixers like you find in DJ booths are configured to take all kinds of inputs, digital and analog, and indeed they will all be fed down into just the 4 channels in those mixes. As I was saying earlier, sometimes there's more than 4 inputs. Now, this brings us on to something that other people ask a lot, and this is generally DJs that see scratch mixers. Now, scratch mixers are very, very different to pro DJ mixes that you see in pro DJ booths, because scratch mixers are ones that have been designed for DJs to perform scratch and turntablist performances on. Now, they're nearly always 2 channels by design. They have a very clean layout. The bottom third will just have the crossfader and very few other buttons and so on around it. And the top is just 2 faders and a few other controls that are almost controlled by muscle memory by DJs that are performing on this gear. And that culture requires mixers to be like that. So it's very rare to find more than 2 channels in that culture. So let's talk about something that was told to me by a rep from one of the big DJ companies when I was chatting to them, kind of off the record, a little while back, I said, why don't you always make 2-channel versions of the 4-channel gear that you release? And they said, we've tried making 2-channel versions in the past. No one buys them. Everyone wants the 4-channel versions, which is really weird because our own stats, our own market research shows us that 80% of buyers, in other words, 80% of DJs who buy 4-channel gear don't use the 4 channels. They only ever use the 2 channels. And so we can conclude this really by saying, if you're thinking about buying DJ gear that's got 4 channels on it, really, if this were a flow chart, we'd be saying, do you think you might use them in the future? And if you do, it's probably worth buying it. If you think I might want to plug extra decks in, I might want to use 4 software channels for loops and for acapellas and so on, that does actually sound quite interesting. Then maybe you should think about buying one with 4 channels. And if not, or if you want to go down the scratch turntablist route, then you don't need to. It's not required, it's not expected in that world. But also, if you're never going to use them, you might as well keep your gear simple. But do take a peek around the back of the gear first and see what kind of 4-channel gear it really is. Honestly, if you're just thinking about, I want to plug something in case I have a crash, so I can just hit play on something that isn't my DJ software, and while I reboot the computer, that kind of thing. Just a piece of DJ gear with a really simple auxiliary input, right? That you can just plug in one extra input, your phone or whatever, just to hit play on something if your main gear goes down, is probably enough. And interestingly, a lot of gear now is starting to have kind of an auxiliary Bluetooth input, which means you don't even need to have a wire connecting that piece of gear. So it might just be that that's the only thing that's worrying you. I don't have a way of plugging in something in case the gear crashes. So look for an auxiliary input. 2 channels plus that might well be enough for you. Of course, your mixing can be a lot more complex with 4 channels. A lot of what we teach in our mixing courses does require that you have a 3rd channel or sometimes a 4th channel. So if you're interested in that kind of mixing, if you're interested in taking it past what you can just do with 2 channels, take a look at our mixing courses in the mixing courses area of our website. I'd recommend looking at House Mixing Mastery, also looking at our Mixing Power Skills course, or James Hype's course as well. James uses 4 decks, but he's using the extra decks for exactly the kind of thing I just spoke about. So on the live chat today, Craig says, this is why I still like my DDJ800, a venerable old controller there, as I got the option of 4 channels, albeit in a long-winded way for the odd times I may need it. Yeah, some controllers will let you plug extra things in, but there's a switch above the 2 channels that you're offered. So that's an interesting option as well that we didn't mention there. Daney says, when I play weddings, I use 4 to 6 channels. So you've got extra microphones plugged in, I guess, as well, and so on there. Mixmaster G says, when I'm using spinning platters and DVS and vinyl, I actually prefer 2 channels. But when I'm on controllers and CDJs, 4 is the way to go. Lou agrees with me that 4 channels do give you options for backups, but also it gives you the freedom to be more creative. Acapellas and drops, the Ruckus is using those as well, as I was mentioning. And Alan, another wedding DJ, says it's great to have 4 channels because I can put all the important intro and special songs on the decks and ready to go. And it keeps them out of the way of the stuff I'm using on decks 1 and 2. Exactly, it's exactly what we were talking about. So thank you for that input there. So this is Inside Track, the podcast from Digital DJ Tips that gets you up to speed with the burning issues in DJing today, as picked by our awesome students. If you'd like to become a Digital DJ Tips student, go take a look at our courses at digitaldjtips.com, and you could be asking a question on the next one because our student groups are open to all students, all owners of our courses. And our third and final topic today, again, this is, as always, really suggested by the vibes going on in the community. This is 3 super simple ways to DJ live stream. So this was actually inspired by a review that we did on the website of a camera called a Nearstream camera, which is kind of a copy of another type of camera called Mevo that we've been using ourselves and we've reviewed several years ago. And it's one of the ways of live streaming that people go for. And so I thought it'd be good to cover a couple of the other ways as well, because the debate that went on underneath that content was around whether that was the right way to go or whether another way might be the right way. But first, let's just backtrack. Let's just talk about what live streaming is. Live streaming is where you go live and you play a DJ set, but there's no one there. Or if there is someone there, the biggest audience are remote. So in other words, whether it's just you at home or whether it's you with a, an invited audience, some very, very privileged people who are there with you, ultimately you've got a camera pointing at you and your gear and you're broadcasting on a platform to the world. The world could tune in. You could have billions of people watching. Doesn't tend to work out like that. Some DJs will only get single figures watching and it might only be their, mom. But over time and done right, you can build an audience around your own style and the music that you like. In other words, you can play what you want. And for a lot of people, that's why they DJ. They don't want to play what everyone else wants in their town or in the only place that they can get gigs. They want to play what they like. And the internet gives you a place of ultimate, potential, because there will be people who are like you and who like what you like, but they're not going to be within your local area. So therefore, if you can broadcast the music and get it out to the world, you might find that one person in 20 cities who likes what you like. Now you've got a little community of 20 that you're playing for regularly. So over time, you can specialize. And also a lot of DJs don't want to go and play out. They just reached a stage in life where they're not interested in playing out. They just want to DJ for fun. But the idea of pointing a camera at their gear is a good one. Also, live streaming is like, I call it practice with consequences. And practice with consequences is just, there's a little bit more friction. There's a little bit more stress. And it's good, building up to a live stream on a Friday night or whatever, you get nervous. You double check all your gear. You make sure your tunes are in order. You have a think about what might go wrong. In other words, you're going through all the moves that you would go through at a real DJ gig, but just in a slightly less stressed environment. So it's good practice. It's almost like a tune-up DJ set. And finally, live streaming is very good for promoting yourself. Those specialist shops, I'm sure in your town, unfortunately, they tend to die out now as town centres and as, shopping malls and stuff they've had their day really, haven't they? Because we're buying everything online. But I'm sure there's still 1 or 2 in your town. Places where they're selling something absolutely crazy. I mean, I can think of a cigar shop, right, in my town. All they sell is cigars and the special blades to cut the ends off before you light them, and the boxes and the cigar rolling cloths and all that stuff. I mean, these kind of shops are proper specialists, aren't they, right? They've got a shop front. They've got a physical place where they do what they do. But I can guarantee you they're also selling online. it's the only way they survive, right? Those little stores. A better example, I guess, for us is record shops, right? Any record shop is going to have an online component, and that's probably where it does most of its selling. But they think, you know what, we might as well have a shop front as well. We might get a bit of walk-in trade. So look, if you think of your DJing like that, you might play gigs outside sometimes, but you can also build a bigger audience online. So it's a good tie-in with, it's not an either or, right? And also, finally, it's fun. Live streaming is fun. In lockdown, a lot of people started. Most of them stopped after their gigs came back. Here at Digital DJ Tips, we live streamed all the way through lockdown. We did hundreds of shows and we loved it. We all loved it. We all really got involved and really enjoyed it and built a nice community around what we were doing. Live streaming is fun. So whether you're streaming on Twitch or YouTube or some other platform, how do you do it? That's what we're talking about here. How do you do it? I'm going to give you 3 super simple ways of doing it. Super simple. So the first thing that you need to think about is it's not good enough to just point your phone at what you're doing and hit go live in the app that comes with your phone for the particular platform. And the main reason it's not good enough is the audio quality. Whatever you do, you need to get good audio quality. The microphone on your phone will not pick it up. So that's the thing that you have to get right. People will forgive shaky video, but they won't forgive bad audio. So the first solution uses your phone, but we get an audio interface, which is a little box that plugs into your phone and that you plug your DJ gear's output into and that feeds the audio into the phone so you get proper, clear audio that sounds great. So you're going to need an audio interface. There is a brand called IK Multimedia that makes some audio interfaces called iRig. They're pretty cheap. The ones that work with your phone are very small. They'll take power from the phone to work. And that's all you need. And you plug your gear into the audio interface. And there you go. Your audio is sorted. You're also going to need a tripod to hold your phone and point it at you and your decks. So you get a view a little bit like a video version of a podcast where it's you and you can see the turntables and so on. So just facing you. And that's it. That's all you need. You're ready to go. It's easy. It's portable. The quality is actually very, very good from phone cameras, but it does tie your phone up. And so if you want to use your phone to take the things people are saying to you on the platform and reply to them and interact, you're going to need to use another one to do that going live bit. So you might have an old phone knocking around in a drawer or something, which will probably do the job. But, that's the simplest way of doing it for sure. The second way is to use an all-in-one camera. So I mentioned a camera called Nearstream that we've just reviewed, but Mevo was the innovator in this area. And it's a little camera that's about, it's about the same size as a pack of playing cards or a bit thicker than a phone, but that kind of size. And it will generally have a little screw thread on the bottom where you can screw a real tripod in. And that camera has got everything in it to go live. So it can actually connect to your Wi-Fi network or use your phone's 4G or 5G to go live. In other words, it doesn't need anything else like an external computer or anything. You just plug it in. You normally configure it with an app that is on your phone. But once you're live, it's the same kind of deal. And the beauty of it is, certainly with Mevo, when you're using one camera, once you set it up, you can kind of move away from the app on your phone and you can use your phone to then go onto Twitch and look at the comments and all that kind of stuff. And the camera will just keep doing its thing. And you can go back to the app if you want to turn it on or off or whatever. So it can be a really interesting way of going live and keeping your phone free because it has got everything built in. Again, you're going to need to get the audio into it, but they have an audio input and a little mixer that you can see on your phone. So you just need a lead from your DJ gear to the back of the camera. You don't need an audio interface. So even simpler in a way than using an audio interface plugged into a phone. The one I recommend is the Mevo Start. The Mevo Start is cheap, and it does everything I just said. It's the best of them. You won't get the best quality of anything from it, but it's good enough. And if you buy a cheap tripod from Amazon or wherever and plug it in with a lead that fits the back of your DJ gear, but also fits the little 1/8 inch mini jack on the back of the camera, That's all you need. You're good to go. It's as simple as that. It's a really elegant solution. Has a battery in it, so it will charge up. You can take it anywhere. I do like that solution. So the third super simple way of going live is the least simple of the lot, but it's also the most popular. So this is where you take a laptop and you use a piece of free software called Open Broadcast Software. I always get that one wrong. Open Broadcast Software or Open Broadcaster Software. And you get that installed on your laptop. You get a webcam, best webcam that you can afford. Plug it into the USB socket. Again, get it on some kind of tripod or some kind of stand pointing at you. And you plug your DJ gear, again, usually via an audio interface, into that laptop to get the audio in, and you're good to go. You've got camera, you've got audio, and you've got a program in the middle controlling it. Now, this is pretty cheap if you already have a laptop you can use. So whether you use standalone DJ gear, so your laptop isn't actually needed for your DJ gear, or if you do use your laptop for your DJ gear, you've got a second one you can just use to do this with. Some very brave people with very powerful laptops, me included in the past, use the same laptop to do this, but you need to be pretty deft with the way you switch between the apps to control it and stuff. Easier to use a second laptop from usability point of view for sure. So if you've already got a second laptop, this can be a cheap way of doing it, because ultimately you're just buying a cheap old tripod and a webcam to get it going. It's the most flexible way for sure, because that that broadcast software has got a lot of features in it that you don't get on either your phone app or on the simple apps that control the kind of all-in-one cameras. So if you are starting to maybe add extra cameras by plugging extra cams in there, or you want to put stuff on the screen, there's plugins that will say the track you're currently playing, or you can put people's names on the screen. You can have the comments scrolling past. You can do all kinds of effects. You can do an awful lot more on those kind of setups than you can with just simple cameras. But they're clearly more complex. There's a much steeper learning curve. They're not so portable because you've got a laptop to carry around as well. And the quality is not as good as your phone. It really isn't, unless you buy expensive cameras to plug in, which you can do. You can buy expensive DSLR cameras and plug them in using interfaces and get, really high quality visuals into these. But if you're just going to use it with a webcam, the camera's not going to be as good as your phone. Phone cameras are amazing, right? So I guess a more accurate way of saying that is that the quality will vary depending upon the kind of camera you plug in. As I say, that is the most popular way, but it is also the least simple way of going about doing this. Now, one thing that people ask us is, well, in fact, there's two questions that get asked a lot. The first one is, how the hell do I get some kind of traction on my live streams? How do I get anyone to watch? So we'll cover that one in a second, but I just want to cover the technical question, which is, how do I get my voice in there? Because one of the tricks of live streaming is you have to talk to your audience. It's different to just getting your head down and playing a DJ set. You have to say hello to people who are saying hello in the chat and so on. That's the way you build community. That's the way you build traction. And so how do you do it? Well, the easiest way of doing it is just to plug a microphone into your DJ gear. All DJ gear has a microphone socket. Plug a microphone in there, turn the music down, say what you've got to say, turn the microphone off, turn the music up again. That will go out the back of your DJ gear and it will go off on your broadcast, just as if you were doing it in real life. Hands down, that's the simplest way of doing it. So that's what I'd recommend you do, certainly at the beginning. I mean, some DJs will plug in a separate mic channel and all this stuff, but really, to keep it simple, just use the same mic that you would use if you were DJing. And if you haven't got one, a Shure SM58 if you want to buy the original, or a copy of that microphone, and there's some very good copies out there, will do the job fine. It will plug into your DJ gear and you're off. But the other thing people ask is, how do I get people to watch? How do I get traction? So I've already covered one thing, interact with your audience. But the second thing is, be consistent. If you are there at the same time every time and you do the same thing, like if you play rock music one week and you play rave the next week and you just do a talk show the next week, and people are going to tune in because they like what you did the week before. When I go and get my hair cut, which takes less and less time nowadays, I have to say, I want it to be the same every time. I want to sit in the same chair. I want the same conversation. I want the same person doing it. I want them to do everything in the same order. As soon as anything changes, I don't know about you, but I get a bit twitchy. I don't like it. It's the same deal. We like our routines, and your live stream should become a routine for your audience. So do the same thing every time. If you do change, change slowly. So be consistent, interact with the audience. And the only other piece of advice I would give is keep it simple. Don't try, I remember the first time I tried to do a live stream in lockdown, I had drop-in video and I had extra cameras. I had another camera just showing the view, and I had all kinds of stuff. And it's too difficult. Even if you pull it off once, it will half kill you with nerves and stress. Just keep it simple. One camera with a nice view is enough, right? You don't have to be a national broadcaster kind of standard to do live streaming. Find some live streamers whose output you like, find out how they do it, copy the bits that you like, and do that every time. There's no need to get complicated. Sometimes simple is best. In fact, most of the time, I would say. If you're interested in learning more about live streaming, do take a look at our Live Streaming Made Easy course. We actually made it back in lockdown, which is a little while ago now, but it's all still completely relevant, other than Twitch has come up as a channel since we made that course. So you might want to look into live streaming on Twitch. I think we talk more about Mixcloud than anything else on there. But Live Streaming Made Easy is the name of the course, and it does cover the 3 areas that I just talked about, along with an awful lot more about how to set up and use live streams. So depending upon the iPhone you've got, says Mixmaster G, you might need a lightning cable Apple camera adapter to be able to plug normal USB interfaces in. That's very true. The Apple camera kit or camera adapter is a very useful piece of gear to buy for iPhones. It does let you get USBs plugged in really easily if they're not USB-C. So thank you for that tip. We're talking about Twitch. The trouble with Twitch is that it's not a dedicated DJ platform, says Craig. When will we get a dedicated DJ platform for streaming? I thought we'd have had one by now. DJs are by definition hackers, and we are by definition people who steal from here and steal from there and hijack this and jump on the back of that. We've always done it to get what we do out to the world, and it's no different for live streaming our sets. I don't think we'll ever get a platform just for us, unfortunately, but hey, who knows? Let's grab another couple of final comments from you about live streaming. Ricardo says, I finally upgraded from my Logitech webcam to a mirrorless Sony a6000. Huge difference. We are big fans of the Sony Alpha cameras here at Digital DJ Tips. Our whole studio is equipped with Sony A cameras. We have got 8 of them, so I can agree with you there. They are fantastic quality. Ricardo says a bit more, actually, gives us a bit of background. Says, I'm a small streamer and I'm not monetizing. And Twitch has recently changed the way it works to be kind of legal for DJs, but you have to jump through a few hoops. And Ricardo says, I'm not really seeing any difference other than I can't legally play some of the songs that I used to play. But anyway, yeah, these things always change. And that's where we're going to leave it for today. Thank you very much for being with us. Again, if you've enjoyed what you've heard here, then please do subscribe. Hit the subscribe button in your podcast platform or on YouTube. And if you want to be someone asking a question on one of our podcasts, then you need to be a student. Just head to digitaldjtips.com and buy a DJ course. We've got a really good wide variety of courses for all ages, abilities, music styles, etc., etc. Finally, please do give us a 5-star rating on your podcast channel. You can write what you want, but it's those 5 stars that count. But please do be kind. We really appreciate it, and it helps to get the word out about this podcast. So for me, Phil Morse, here in the Digital DJ Tips studio, until next time, get good, get out there, and make the moments. Bye for now.